What's up, guys? It's Mr. Jamvet, and today we are back for another episode of On the Contrary. And today I'm going to be having a guest. Now, this guy is the original fast climber. And what I mean by that is earlier this year, and I'll give you a slight backstory, I was actually I thought about leaving YouTube. I was like, it was around the time I put out the videos for the video series. I felt like I had given all I needed to give. The book was done. Everybody was getting results. All was well. And so I was dealing with a couple personal things in my own life. I was just losing that zest. Wasn't uploading. And I was like, you know what, man? I had no zest for Pokemon or YouTube at the time. And so it was around that time that the person in this video PM'd me. He was green. I think maybe even it might have been like 1200 at the time. Super green to the game. And then he just asked me for a few tips, and so gave him a few tips. I get that all the time, so I wasn't thinking much of it. But the difference with this guy is he actually listened and implemented the things, which was rare. Generally, I give the tips and, okay, cool. And, people may implement it, people may not. But this guy implemented it. And so I think within a week and a half, he went from, and he'll give you the actual numbers, I think maybe from 1200 to 1700. This was before everybody was doing it. He was the original person. And so that opened my mind and provided more zest for YouTube again, because every time I'd be like, man, he'd shoot me another PM about just his progress, and it really reminded me of why I originally started doing this and what I enjoy most about this process. And so without further ado, I want to introduce, I always call you Skeptical, because it just makes more sense in my head. Skeptical Dingo, but I think his Showdown, his Discord name is actually Skeptical Dingo, or now SD. So I'll have him introduce himself real quick.
How you going, guys? Pleasure to be here with you, Jam. So my name's Skeptical Dingo. I do go by SD because it's just a lot easier to pronounce.
Yeah.
I guess, it's been quite a journey from the start of this year, for sure. For those of you who don't know, I'm Aussie, so I live in the future, in the land that doesn't exist, with animals that just want to kill you. Mm-hmm. We'll start with that.
Yeah. So let's, before we begin even with that, guys, whoa. But before we begin, I'm actually offering this thing for the month called a Mastermind. And what that is I'm going to accept 10 people, because that's the capacity right now. I'm working on being able to expand even that. But currently it's going to be a maximum of 10 people. Now, I already have one person, and so it's really 9 people for who are listening to this. And what that will involve is me working with you as a sort of a boot camp thing for an entire month. Each week, we're going to have at least one session of 90 minutes. And then, you have access to me at all times. And then it's going to be those 10 people. I'm going to bring in people who are already further along, let's say, and they'll be assistant coaches in a way of looking at it. And so you can use them as a resource at any time. As I said, this will last 4 weeks. I say a month, but 4 weeks. This will not be free, and there will be an application process down below. It's a quick application to make sure I know that I can help you achieve your goal. Because if you said that you're at 1,000 and you want to get to 2,000 in 4 weeks, it's possible, but it'll depend a lot on who you are, and I want to make sure that I can properly get you to your goal. This involves, if you want to learn about team building, battling, and also draft league, because draft league is heavy strategy, and so I can help you with your strategic process, and I'll have draft league people in there. This mastermind group will be called, funnily, the Society. Yes, this is like a secret society of 10 people that work one-on-one. And this is for those who want to get rapid results. And so, again, application will be in the description below. Check that out, and I'll sift through which ones I can accept based on what you want to do. So, yeah. As for skeptical or SD, I always say skeptical in my head, so I'm probably gonna refer to you as that. Tell them a little bit about how you even got into Pokemon and how you got up to where you even found out about me.
Okay, so when I was young, so I'm 25 now. When I was younger, I got my first ever Pokemon game, Pokemon Red. I've Charizard, because Charizard's the coolest looking thing ever. I was the sort of battler that I used to just have all the coolest Pokemon. I had no concept of moves like Bulk Up, Swords Dance, Dragon Dance. I thought they were just useless moves. Like them. Every Pokemon had to have like Flamethrower, Ice Beam, Thunderbolt. Like you were just unstoppable with them because you just hit everything. That was like my mindset. And it wasn't until Omega Ruby, Alpha Sapphire that I sort of I started playing a bit more Wi-Fi, and I'll never forget it. I'm playing with, well, they're considered Ubers at the moment. So like your Lugias, your Ho-Ohs, all that sort of stuff, like Kyurem, Primal Groudon, all that sort of stuff. I'm versing this guy. He's got like Donphan and Jolteon. That sort of stuff, and I got absolutely smacked, man. And I was just like, what the heck? Like, that's not even possible, you know? And so what I did was, as all smart people do, is you go to Google, and I Googled just simply Pokemon Wi-Fi battles. That led me to Joey, PokeMD, who those of you don't know. I'll never forget watching one of his matches. He was playing just a random Wi-Fi battle against, one of his subs or something. And it was 5-3, and one of his Pokemon just fainted. And so now it's 5-2, and he's like, oh, perfect. Now I think I just win with this. And I'm just like, hold up, man. Like, you're getting smacked right now. Right. And surely he ended up just sweeping him from then on. And I'm now, like, on the other side of the fence. I understand now what Joey was doing, and he had the game plan all set out and everything. But as a newcomer, I was like, I just want to know how to do that. Like, that's incredible to me. So that was sort of like my smallish introduction into competitive, is I wanted to learn how to do that. And so then I Googled how to get good at competitive Pokemon. And I found this book, which some of you may have heard of. It's written by Mr. Janvad.
This was my first book. I've written 2 books, by the way, guys. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so this was the prototype. I bought this, and I read it probably several times.
Yeah, it was like $7, I think. Like, it was like super low. It might have been like $7 or $8.
It wasn't anything, massive. But yeah, I read that, and I thought, oh, you beaut, like this guy who's like, I had no idea who you were. Like, I didn't know.
So you never found my channel yet? You just Googled it?
No.
Okay.
I had no idea you'd done Smogon tournament. My thought process was literally, oh, you're like Joey, but not as good because you don't have as many subscribers as Joey.
Okay.
Joey focuses on competitive, and you just teach people what you know. I'm like, okay, so he must know something, but he's not as good as Joey. Like, if I can learn from Joey, I'll learn from Joey. That was my thought process.
Makes sense.
And yeah, well, logically back then it did.
Right.
I read this book, and I got no results at all.
Mm-hmm.
I just thought, like, I think I gave it about 3 months, and I could not break like 1150. Like
What?
I
Yeah.
I could not do it, man. I'd get to, like a game away, and
Mm-hmm.
then like I tilt all the way down, and like to put it short, I basically just gave up. I
Mm-hmm.
just thought, um, I thought Joey, like, he's my age, I think.
Mm-hmm.
He's been long as I have, but he's been in competitive a lot longer, and he knows what all this stuff does,
Mm-hmm.
and it's like knows so much, and it's like I'm starting this now, and he's got years of experience on me.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm thinking it's going to take so long to learn all this,
Right.
and I can't just read this book and expect to get the answers. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I just thought it's not going to happen. So yeah, that was the beginning. I don't know how much more in depth you want me to go from there, but
No, no, that
um,
was pretty in depth. Like, it's actually super funny. So for all you guys who didn't know, um, originally, as I said a million times, it's funny. All my great ideas and great new things come from me getting ready to leave YouTube. But I've been in a love hate relationship, not actual hate, but just a kind of, okay, I think I've given all I needed to give to the community, and so it's time for me to go and give elsewhere, really, because obviously Pokemon isn't the only thing I'm committed to, and so the book was an aim to okay, like I've gotten all this success and reached a level that most or very few have ever hit just in history of this game, and so I knew a lot of things that no one else did, but
mhm.
I never thought I could write a book. I'm like, oh, one, why they would never read it. Secondly, who am I to write a book at the time? I was maybe 21 or so, 20. Yeah, I think I may have been 21, maybe 22, and so no one has ever in the space attempted anything like this. Like, this was some pioneer shit.
Yeah.
um like ever, like I'm talking just arguably in the gaming space competitively, period. Like, this is where we're going with the academy, and what I have planned is stuff no one has ever attempted on earth in history ever. um but back then I
the goat,
didn't. Huh?
the goat. That would be,
Man, you think like back then people would literally not even, when I used to be heavy in the tournament scene, people wouldn't even, you know they wouldn't even call me Jam. They'd say God. Like, it's, which is always laughed about. But it was back when I wrote that. It was like I was heavy in the scene, leaving, and so that was like, okay, this can be a thing where if you need it, if you want the information, you can find it, you can get it, and I get some money out of it. Awesome, win-win. As I said, it was. This just shows my mentality of what I thought I brought to the table at the time. It was like a 7.99 book, like, and I'm glad that it was so low because compared to the book I have now, it's not even close as far as value. But
mm,
I described this in the beginning of the book for all you guys who've read it. But long story short, I would have this feeling in my gut, and integrity is huge for me, right? I cannot accept something from somebody or feel comfortable offering something to somebody unless I know it works. Like, I know, like I researched it, I did the testing, and so I know I didn't really do that for the book. And a lot of the reviews were like, oh, it's a little more generic than I expected, all these things. And so I'm like, man, what? And so I'd never look at the reviews, and I'd never promote the book either. It actually was like, if you find out about it, you find out about it kind of thing. Um,
yeah.
because I never felt comfortable promoting it, but I didn't want to rewrite it either. I'm like, that shit took me fucking like a year, well, maybe 8 months to write, and publish and all that. I can't rewrite it. But then a problem came up, right? Another trait of mine is I don't live with regret. And so I'm like, man, my aim was to provide the community with something that was truly transformative and provide all the answers in one place. The book wasn't doing that, the current one I had, and so I knew if I left, it would haunt me to know that I did it, but I didn't do it to my best of my ability. So one day I was like, you know what? I'm doing it. Deconstructed the entire book almost from scratch. It wasn't fully from scratch, but almost from scratch. And then I almost from scratch, and then I started to dig and really go. I interviewed people who were 1,000. Obviously I already had access to people who were at the highest level of play, but I didn't know what a 1,000 player thought like anymore. And so I literally on Showdown PMing random people. Like, okay, what do you think about when you start a battle? What do you and deconstructed it. I went about it like a science project and really tried to understand the psychology, even though at the time I didn't know that's what I was doing. Now I do, but at the time I didn't know that's what I was doing. And so reconstructed it from the ground up. That one took me maybe a year to put back together. It was a while. It was maybe 18 months. It was a while. A lot of procrastination, a lot of self-discoveries, a lot of testing. And I tested the principles on real people, and they get the fast results that you got. So by the time I put that one out, I was like, yep, this is it. Like, this is it. And so that's how the second book was born, for sort of a history lesson on those who are new to me or just discovered me or got the book through Joey. It works now, and I've seen it so many times that I can confidently say that. And so since you discovered the first book, obviously, you now have the second one. So fill the people in on how you got to the point where you quit. Jam sucks, not as good as Joey because he doesn't have enough subs, which is understandable. That's a real psychological thing in the realm of influence. Like, people are influenced by social proof, and on YouTube, social proof is how many subscribers you have. And so it's natural for humans to assume that if they have more social proof, they are probably better. If they make more money, they're probably better. So I don't think any of that personally, by the way. I want you to be as honest as possible. But how did you find out and come back to Pokemon?
Yeah, just on that, it's like you touch on a completely different area to Pokemon than Joey. Whilst that was my mindset before, it's cool to come back to where I am now and know that, like, no one does what you do. So you're in a league of your own, and like Joey, MV, Blunder, they're like entertainers, when they play on Showdown, and it's like, sure, you can compare them, but like this journey has taught me is, like, you can't say that Joey won more times and therefore he's the better battler. It's like, you don't know that, Blunder and amazing, you're amazing. Like, there's so many other great trainers and battlers out there that you got to have the mindset that you can beat anyone, which in a minute. So yeah, I took a break. I quit essentially. I thought, like, this thing, like, I thought, this is stupid, because I'm trying to be good at something that takes years to be good at, and I wanted it in like a quick 2-month fix. You know what I mean? I wanted I wanted to be as good as Joey in 2 months. And I think because I didn't see any progress, I got discouraged, and that made me quit. But I still kept watching Joey. I kept watching draft leagues and like MV and all that. And I was just like, nah, look, like I'm still buying all the games, and I'm still trying Wi-Fi battles. I'm still getting beat by just stupid
Right.
stuff,
Right.
and I'm like, no, I need to actually learn like what's going on, and I can't remember when exactly I first messaged you, but I think it was like the start of Feb,
Yeah, it was
and
like early pre-corona. It was pre-corona.
yeah, yeah, or just actually a little bit before that is I was watching a video from Joey, and it was on Twitch, and he was doing his Wi-Fi battle or whatever, and at team preview he's just like, if I lead with Obstagoon I just win, and I just commented, I'm like, dude, how the heck do you know that? Like,
Mm-hmm.
how can you just see that at team preview? And he's just like, well, think about this. Like, if I use this move, I literally kill 3 of his mons. I use this move to kill 2 of them. I use this move to kill the last one, and nothing on his team can beat it. Or, it went through his process and all the rest of it. And it just blew my mind. I said, look, well, like, where can I learn to do all of this? And that's when he said, like, oh, look, you need to join the Jambat Academy.
Mm-hmm.
And so he sent the link to your YouTube channel.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, righto. I'm like, like the name rang a bell, but it didn't click for me straight away.
Mm-hmm.
And then I jumped in, and I was like, oh, this is the guy that wrote that book that didn't work.
Right.
That was my thoughts.
Right.
And so I think I sat in your academy for like a week before I actually got the balls to PM you and go, like, essentially, when you talk about that integrity and stuff, I think it's kind of funny because I came from a pretty strong standpoint saying, look, man, like, if you're going to say that you've written this book and it's so good, then you tell me that it's worth buying and that, like, I'm going to get my money's worth. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Sort of, in a way, sort of telling you to, put your money where your mouth is and say, look, if you think that this is so good, then, you tell me to buy it,
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, yep, you know what, I'll give it one more shot. So I bought the book, and I didn't. If for those of you out there that are actually going to buy the book, read it real slow, like real slow. This is a journey that is going to take you months. And I say like months as in, it could take a 3-month block, or it could take a 6-month block, or whatever. But I read just the preface of this book, and it just changed the whole way of thinking that I had. I think previously with the old book, I was like, I'm going to buy this book, and this book's going to turn me into some sort of Pokemon mastermind where I'm just going to have all this knowledge of everything, and I'm just going to be this pro battler, like Joey.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the first things that you say in the book is like, you got to have the mindset of a learner, which is so important in so much in everyday life as well.
Mm-hmm.
Loss is a part of life, and that you learn more from your mistakes than you do from your wins.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I don't have the numbers in front of me, but I think from memory, I think I went, so I'd never cracked, like, I think 1200 was like the highest I'd ever gotten to this point.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I cracked about 1400 without actually reading any further into the book.
Mm-hmm.
So that was just a change of mindset that got
Mm-hmm.
me into that.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I think that just that alone is like, the book is there that when you read it, it's like everything is so intentional, and it's like you just do what it says. So there's a part in like the first section of the book that talks about so you mention about like every turn you can do one of 3 things, and you can attack, you can defend, or you can switch. And you told me in the book to play 10 games every day for 10 days and focus just on attacking. Don't switch, don't defend, just attack what's in front of you. And even that alone just helped me go up a little bit. But when I first read it, I thought, like, what do you want me to learn from this? Like, I'm just attacking stuff, you know. I'm not predicting, I'm not doing any of that. I'm just attacking what's in front of me with the super effective move. That's literally all I'm doing. And I just thought, like, Jam, I don't need to play 100 games like this to learn how much Earthquake does to a Hippowdon. Like, I don't need to know that. But I think what it taught me is you see how much damage things do, and you see how quickly you can, like, I think, and I do have this problem too, is I'm very passive with how I play. So the first thing that I think to do is, how am I going to protect myself?
Right.
I could actually strike and knock something out straight away.
Aren't you in the defense house? Weren't you in the defense house when you, aren't you?
I am in the defense.
Right.
Yeah. I've actually got a funny story for later.
Yeah.
That I'll make sure I'll mention.
Okay.
But yeah, I'm in the defense house because that's how I think. And so this was pre-home, pre-DLC 1 and all the rest of it, where Dracovish was running around. And where my thought process was at was, I think I messaged you a PM in depth, but stuff like, I was switching out my Pokemon into Hatterene just so I could take a hit and, you know, bounce rocks and all the rest of it. And I'm like, I have a Dracovish right there that can just sweep your team and I'm not even using it, you know? And it's like, all it just taught me was, it's like, just pick the Pokemon that does the most damage, get it in as often as possible, and just start clicking buttons, you know?
Right.
That alone just made me skyrocket. And so I think my point with saying all of that is, there is a process, and you will only get as far as you allow yourself to go. Because if you think that you can skip a step, or you can not do what is said because you think you know better,
right.
You know, it just defeats the behind the book. You know, it's like, just do it, because you're not doing it just to learn how to attack what's in front of you, because, you know, anyone can do that. You just learn about the damages, you learn about the moves, you learn about what Pokemon are actually counters to other Pokemon in the meta and other stuff. You learn so much more. It's not just attacking.
Right.
Yeah, so I think that pretty much covers that part.
And okay, so it's super fascinating because and I'll make a dedicated video, as I said to you, about the actual mastermind and what that'll entail, and what inspired me to want to do this, because I'm not going to be available for coaching forever, you know. So if you've ever wanted sort of that, because it's going to be far faster if you work with me one-on-one than and I'm talking to the audience at the moment. But the reason what SD is saying is so important is, a lot of what I wrote in that book, and it's crazy, right? It's actually, a lot of that are like how do I put this? Are studied, like, psychological, human behavioral, like, sound principles, but I didn't know at the time the word to attach to that. So let's put it this way. I mentioned, you know, having a learner's mindset. Now, I will admit to, I said it in the book too, I learned that from Carol Dweck's book, and I think you read it, right? You read Audiobook's Mindset.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think there was a point in time where you attached it to one of your YouTube videos.
It's at the bottom of all my YouTube videos.
Yeah. And it's with How a Man Thinketh and The Art of War.
Yeah.
And so I started listening to that, and I think it's an amazing book. Like,
Amazing.
it's the way that you think, like, and yeah. Anyway, sorry to cut you off. Yeah, go on.
Nah, that's good. Like, a lot of people don't know that. They never scroll to the bottom of the description, or they're like, this is just some bullshit, blah blah blah. But that's what and that's gonna go into the next thing, right? The 4 reasons people, and just in life, there are 4 reasons people fail. Um, well, I want to say 4 reasons. Just I'll go into it. So here are the reasons generally you're gonna fail at something. So the first one is who do you listen to, right? So let's say you want to, like, there are probably people listening who want results in whatever, right? And so they're like, okay, I want to get to 1500. Let's say your goal is 1500 or 1900 or whatever your goal is. The first thing you must consider anytime you're aiming to set a goal at something is who do you listen to. So if you're aiming for 1500 and you're listening to people in 1300 give advice, that's probably not the best idea, right? And so who do you listen to is insanely important. If you're trying to make 100,000 in a month, but you're listening to your mom about what, unless your mom makes 100,000 a month, but like if your mom, that's to say she doesn't do well, she could make 100 in a year, but she's not making 100,000 a month. That's not who you should listen to about that subject. Even if you love her, that's fine. It doesn't mean you love her any less, but that's just not the person. She hasn't done what you want to do, or she doesn't know how to show you how to get to where you want to get, right? And so who do you listen to is number one. Two, which is probably the biggest thing, some people get who do you listen to right. Like if somebody may watch a video or ask me for advice, and so, or come to the Academy Discord, and so they'll get the who do you listen to correct, because people also with the who do you listen to point, somebody may be good at the thing you want, but they're not good at teaching. So those are 2 different skill sets. Like I could be a good player, but I can't teach you for shit, because, and you're gonna understand the 4th reason people fail is why somebody can't teach. It's not a good or bad thing. I'll explain that. So who do you listen to? Can they teach it to you? Do they have a proven track record of teaching it, successfully teaching people, or are they doing what you want to do? Number 2, the biggest one, most likely, kind of teachability index, which is what is your willingness to learn multiplied by what's your willingness to accept change. So a lot of people are willing to learn, so they're like, okay, I'll watch the videos, and let's multiply willingness to learn by a 10. Let's denote a 10. So what's your willing to learn? What's your willingness to learn on a scale of 1 to 10? Most people would say 10. I want to know all the information. I think Skeptical was a 10 in willingness to learn when he just started. But there's another component to the teachability index, which is what's your willingness to accept change. And so that's where a lot of people falter, right? If your willingness to learn is a 10 out of 10, I want to learn it. I want the result. I want it. But then I say, okay, all right, go grab 10 battles. Oh, I didn't know I'd have to play. I didn't know I have to attack every time. So their willingness to accept change might be 0, which a 10 times 0 is 0. So your teachability index is 0 and you're wasting your time. It could be a 1 out of 10. And your teachability index is a 10. Or if it's a 10 teachability, 10 willingness to learn, 10 willingness to accept change, your teachability index is a 100 and you'll learn very quickly. That's why I said depending on who you are, I can get you the result. But it all comes down to your teachability index. Are you willing to accept change? Are you willing to implement the thing even if it's counterintuitive to what you already believe? And so if you're not getting the results you want in whatever area of life, because this is not a Pokemon thing, and that's why I said, like, I start to bring these life concepts into Pokemon. The reason that, how do I put this? But if you're not getting the results you want in anything in life, and you know you're listening to the right person, it's probably because your teachability index isn't very high, right? If you keep doing and believing what you have, like that you've been believing to get the results you have now, then you're going to continue to get those results. So unless you adopt something that you didn't believe before, do actions that you haven't done before, think thoughts that you've never thought before, you can't get a new outcome. It's impossible. And there are scientific reasons for that, like, but I don't want to, I'm working on something that'll teach you all this at the moment. The third thing is something I'm going to call trusting the process. I'll call it faith, just having faith. A little more technical, but just to put it simply, having faith in the process. And so usually at this point, people may have a teachability index. They're willing to accept change. You're doing the actions, but then after maybe, let's say it's 10 battles and they have seen no progress, they now start to doubt the process. And so that's where the faith comes in, right? I'm going to trust the process. Easier said than done. That's why I have the academy as a group, so people can see other people's success. And so they're like, if it works for him, I know it can work for me, right? That group dynamic. And so having faith. And then the last thing is getting to unconscious competence. So when you're learning new information, there are four steps, I guess. You're unconsciously incompetent, which is where most people are. You don't know what you don't know, right? And so a lot of people think they know everything, but they don't even know that they don't know some things. And so when they find out, oh my God, even if somebody listening to this, what I'm explaining to you now, a lot of it is like, but you didn't know this before I told you. And I'm using these processes all the time in my videos, all the time in my teachings, all the time but you don't know that I'm doing it. You don't know that you don't know. And so after you don't know what you don't know, unconscious incompetence, you move to conscious incompetence. Now you know you don't know. So you're like, okay, I heard Jam talk about that thing, or I heard that rich guy talk about that thing, and now I know I don't know about that. And then you move into the next stage, which is conscious competence, where you're starting to practice. So you practice. Okay, that's why I have you do the 10 battles repeatedly, because now it's time to practice so you can move into the next stage, which is unconscious competence. This is where most players are that are top high level players. They're in unconscious competence. They know what they're doing, but they don't know that they know what they're doing. They wouldn't know how to articulate it. Just like how if you drive a car now, you don't think about, you just hop in the car and move. Sometimes you don't even remember driving home because you're unconsciously competent at driving your car. You're unconsciously competent at putting on your pants. You're unconsciously competent tying your shoelace. But when you remember when you were first tying your shoelace as a kid, that thing was a problem. And so I think when we become adults, we forget that there's a step to learning all these things. And so when we're in when we're in conscious competence and we make mistakes or we're not seeing results as we try to move it into unconscious competence through practice, if the results don't come fast enough, then we quit. And I know that's a lot of information to digest. Luckily, this is on audio, so you can repeat it. This is my first time truly explaining it fully on any capacity on video. So I'll refine it so where it makes more sense. I'm writing another book, and I'll explain all the psychological back end of like competitive gaming, so it can help, because that's the mindset I've learned is way more important than the skill set. But it just ties back into what Skepta was just saying and describing about how he had a high teachability index when He PM'd me. He just didn't know he had a high teachability index. That's why he started seeing the results quickly. Right? Spooky Z, the 13-year-old prodigy, as they call him, is another example of that. He has a very high teachability index because he's so young. So he doesn't have a lot of, let's just call it baggage. You know, the older you get, the more negative baggage, the more negative neural pathways are in your brain about why things won't work. And you become more cynical and harder to curb the older you get. If you have a really horrible childhood, you can have that too. But Spooky was the perfect test subject for the principles and how fast they can work, because he had a high teachable index. Anything I told him, he's like, he got, who do you listen to, right? He came to me and he's like, Jam, what do I do? Okay, well, watch these videos. Okay. Didn't question the process. And he just he watched that video series 3 times. And he got from 1100, his goal was 1100 when he came to Discord, and in 6 days he was at 18 something. 6 days. Everybody was like, this guy is a scam, or he's not 13, or until they heard him on mic, he's 13. So, you know, all that is just to say, like, it's really to give more kudos to you, because you didn't know, but what changed was your teachability and also the information. Like, I think I failed you on my first book, to be fair. But these principles are well tested. So if you're somebody who has the book, and you're like, okay, you know, tested it, and I'm this story would be like a great resource for you. And so what happened after? So you got up to, you know, 1500 or 1400 just from the mindset part. But touch on what happened, because then you know, obviously you saw some more progress, but there was a little rocky road in the middle. I remember, because I literally coached him over like PMs, because I liked him. I like people who are teachable. I'm actually very free giving with my information, more than I should be. But if you're teachable, I'll generally help you if I have the time. And so, what happened throughout that time? You broke 1400, you're ecstatic. What happened next?
Yeah, so my original goal was to get to, I think, 1500 was my goal when I so I was super keen to, like, I was at 1400, and I think it took me like 3 days. And so, like, I was super stoked. But what then happens is, when you get so close to your goal and you can see it, you sort of focus too much on the destination. And for me, that was the number 1500.
Right.
And so what ended up happening was, I sort of felt like, I think I said this in a message to you, it's like all the knowledge and all the, I hadn't even got to the pillars yet. So it's not confused with that, but it's like everything that I had read and everything that I had learned just left. And I, like, so fast. I think I was playing one night, and I think I went all the way down to back to 1100. I think I went, and I tilted like 400 or 450 points, 400 points or something, and like I was in a real shit mood.
I wonder why.
And yeah, I contacted you. I'm like, Jam, like, what is happening? And like, I don't get it. Like, I was so close, and then, you know, and then this happens, and then I lost one game, and then, because what happens is you lose one. This is something that I've had to sort of learn. Is you lose one game, and then, like, it gets late at night or whatever, or you got to go out or whatever, and you're like, I'm not finishing on a loss.
Yeah.
I go out on a win, and so you play another game, but you've got to go out, so, or you've got to go to bed or whatever, so you got to wrap it up quickly, and so you rush, and you're not patient, and you're not focused, and then you lose again, and you're like, nah, I need another game. You know, And then before you know it, you're like, nah, I've had enough. I'm throwing it out. And then you look at your score, and it does that thing on the bottom of Showdown where it's like, the ladder hasn't updated or
Yeah.
whatever. But the following day, and you're like, I'd lost that many times. Like, all my hard work is just gone.
Mm-hmm.
And then you were just telling me in the PM that, like, yeah, the goal's 1,500, but it's all relative to the journey, and that the destination is to be number one. The destination isn't 1,500. The destination is number one for me on the Gen A OU ladder. Like, so 1,500 is well below that. So it was just a reframing of like my mindset in a way, and I think then you introduce the pillars, and so I read on and I read about the pillars and all that, and like about how the meta game can change and all the rest of it. I'm like, right, I need to build more awareness and all the rest of it. And then that's when I started. I shot up again, and I got to I broke 1,600.
Right.
And then
this wasn't
I think
this wasn't like in the span of a day, maybe like 2 days. Like,
I think it was 4 days. I think it was. But then same thing happened. Was I tilted?
Right.
I think I was 1670 something, and I tilted again. And this time it was worse because the higher you go, the more you fall. So I went back again to about 1,200, and I just reread your messages, and I just like, I got to stop. Like, I think for people listening, like, if you're gonna fail, like, that's all right, because even though I got up there super quick, I didn't just get there without any obstacles or hurdles to jump over. I didn't get it right on my first go because I quit on my first go. And then on my second go, I tilted. And then on my third go, I tilted. And then on my fourth go, I tilted. And that's going to happen. But I think the difference is you've got to know that you've got to learn something from every battle. You've got to... I did this thing when I first started. I think I showed you a photo of it. I got an Excel spreadsheet with my team. And I quickly wrote down the opponent's team.
Yeah. And
I selected my lead at the start, and I decided on how I was going to win the game, and I wrote it down in Excel. And then I let the battle play out, and then I re-watched it, and I go, what did I do wrong? Whether it was I just let Blissey die, and now I've got nothing to defend myself against, whatever, right? And I'm like, that's the reason I lost, because I just had nothing for this. I needed Blissey alive, or maybe the battle could have been different. And it's like, piece by piece, you sort of put all that information together, and now it's like you have a real good understanding of your team. And if I have, this isn't in the book, but if I have any advice for people that are going through this journey, is try to, as best you can, build your own team. I've got still to this day, I have really limited team building experience, but what it sort of taught me to do is that I've selected Pokemon for a reason, and I know why I've selected them. And people with more experience than me can take one look at my team and go, like, that's garbage, and you're so weak at this, and you've got nothing for this.
Right.
But I'm not aware of that yet. But by me building my own team, and I'll PM'd you this as well, is I was so weak to a certain Pokemon, so I made changes. And it's teaching me more than if I just took someone else's team, because it's like, for people that are just joining, it's like, there's a Pokemon out there called Urshifu, and if you're new, try and name a Pokemon that can't take a Choice Banded Wicked Blow or two of them from, like, it is a beast of a mon. And I built teams, and I had nothing to defend against it. But then you start to go, right, I need something that can take at least 2 hits and be able to kill it in return and all that. And it's like, I found that for me personally that was something that really helped me to progress, because I know what each Pokemon on my team does, and that was really helpful. But what ended up happening later was I eventually cracked my goal of 1700.
Mm-hmm.
I think it took me 3 weeks. I think
It might have been 3 weeks from 0. I don't even think it was that long. Like, I don't think, because it definitely wasn't 3 weeks from 1600 to 1700. It might have been 3 weeks in total from like 0 to 1700.
Yeah, 3 weeks from me being 1100 with no experience at all to getting to 1700. But then what was interesting in a way was in real life, I lost my job because of COVID. And so I was without work for about 3 months, and all my time went into that. And then when I got my new job for about a month, I was so focused on that. And so for about 3 months, I just completely stepped away from Pokemon. And I was like, cool, I can pick it up, and I'm 1700. And then I learnt about the decay thing that they have on Showdown. And so I was like way down at like 1480 or something. But the DLC had come out, or Pokemon Home had come out, and now there's all these new Pokemon, and I'm not prepared for any of them. And Dracovish was on my team, and Dracovish was banned, and Dugtrio was on my team, and Dugtrio was banned. I'm like, so the team that got me to 1700 I couldn't use anymore, and now I don't have a team to use, and there's all these new Pokemon that I don't know what they do, and I don't know how to defend against them, and essentially I had to start the process again in a way, because my knowledge of this new metagame was different. You know, I had a pretty decent knowledge of pre-home Gen 8, but then post-home Gen 8 was a different beast, and my knowledge was low, you know, and I started dropping again. But then, you know, it's like everything is, you follow the process again, you build a team, you learn how it all works, and you know, what counters different Pokemon and all the threats and stuff like that. And then, you know, I started climbing again. But I do need to take a moment to shout out to Savoris in the Academy Discord. One night he helped me create a team builder, which is like things like offensive sweepers, like from physical attackers, special attackers, speed tiers for Pokemon, walls, different cores, hazard setters, hazard removers, spin blockers, pivots, all that sort of stuff. He just gave me this this template from what he'd use in Omega Ruby Alpha Sapphire. And so I just translated that. It took me about 3 hours, but I just transferred that into Gen 8 from what I knew. And it's almost like plug and play, because it's like, right, you need a Stealth Rocker. So it's like, go on the list, find a Stealth Rocker, and here's a list of all the Pokemon that know Stealth Rocks. It's like, right, pick one of them that you like, but can it fulfill another role on the team? So Hippowdon is a Stealth Rocker. It sets weather to remove, you know, rain if you're versing a rain team or whatever, but it's also an electric immunity. So you've got a few different roles for Hippowdon, but you need an offensive sweeper. Now, do you put Excadrill on the team because that gets benefit from the sand, and, you know, it all sort of interweaves itself. But I need to thank Savoris for doing that and taking the time, because, yeah, it's definitely helped me a lot for sure.
Nah, Savoris is dope. Like, I'm really, really, really happy with how the academy has grown. Like, so many of the future monsters are gonna be from the academy. And what really makes me happy about that is the mindset of the people here are very different than anywhere else within the community, because we've made it
Oh,
such a a requirement to be a decent person. Like, there is zero tolerance for what most would consider, toxic behavior. And it's 2,000 people, like 2,000 to 2,100, like almost 2,200 people in there. So for that to be pulled off is quite the feat. So I'm really happy to hear that, Savoris, and I'm sure Devin helped you a lot as far as the battling and.
oh, I need there's a spot for Devin. Like, Devin, shout outs to Devin, man. Devin's unreal.
But actually, two more things I'd like to know before we wrap up. Firstly, since we're on the topic of Savoris, Devin and whatnot, I want you to touch on, because remember there was a point, this was a critical point, because we could talk all day about your journey.
Yeah.
There was a critical point recently where you had to take the leap, because we hosted our first first Premier League in the academy. Shout outs to the Move. They ended up winning. I need to give them a shout out. But
yeah, they well. They very well.
Yeah, some beasts in the academy. Don't sleep, guys. But so you joined your first Premier League, and you decided to sign up. Started to get a little confidence in yourself, and you're like, okay, I'm gonna sign up. Let's see. You ended up getting drafted, and you ended up getting, I think you got to start week 1, right?
I played week 2.
But you could have, didn't Devin offer you to start week 1?
No. So what happened?
Okay.
My thought process was, when I saw this, I thought, oh, this will be a great experience, because I'm going to play against some of the best guys, and I can see like just how far I've come. You know what I mean? And so I looked at, again with my limited knowledge, I said I don't want to just be drafted by anyone. I just want to try out for 2 teams. And so I looked at the 2 teams that I thought I'd learn the most from, and rightly or wrongly, like, I only just tried out for them. That was just my personal decision. So I tried out for Savoris and the Flygon Express, and I tried out for Devon at the Phantom Group, and I was very pleased when I was drafted. I thought, so I played Devon in my tryout game, and I lost 1-0. And so I thought, like, damn, I didn't win, so maybe I don't get picked. Which wasn't actually the case. It was just Devon seeing your battling ability and all the rest of it. Savoris' tryouts, on the other hand, was I had to send in a replay explaining my thought process on a game that I thought was good, which was challenging because you play games on the ladder and you want it to be decently high on the ladder. So it's a component, and then you want to showcase your thought process, and you need it almost to be like flawless, like the decisions that you're making. But anyway, that's almost irrelevant. I got drafted by the Phantom Troop and introduced myself and told them, look, I've been playing since February, basically. Like, I'm really fresh, but I made a point in there. I said, I believe that I can beat anybody. I truly believe that when I started. I wasn't expecting the caliber of players that had actually joined the Premier League, which is a really stupid thing to think when you think about it, because it's like, of course, like when people are drafting like players, they have to be good, so I don't know why I didn't expect them to be good, but everyone on my team just knew so much. So like I was blown away by people like Easy and Mac Zance and Arthur and U Gaming, Hyrule, AC, all those sorts of guys. They just had so much knowledge, and I messaged Devon, who's my manager on this team, and I just said to him like I was watching all the replays and we were doing really well, but I think our first week was against Marrow Mafia, and I think we only won 6-4, and I was just looking at the games and I'm just going like, nah, like I can't play in this, you know. I'm nowhere near as good as these guys. Like, they know everything. They're prepping for what they think other people are going to bring, and they brought that, and then they're like winning games because they predicted, like, out of all the Pokemon you could bring, they're predicting what the other person's going to bring, and their knowledge just blew me away. And I said to Devon, I said, look, man, like, I don't want to let the team down, and you know, I don't know anywhere near enough to these people. You know, like, I just shouldn't play. And I really need to thank Devon, because Devon was a bit of a tough nut, and he just didn't accept it, really. So he just said, look, I drafted you for a reason, and I don't like your attitude, basically. And so I slept on it, and the next night I apologised, because I thought, nah, he was right, like, I do have a shit attitude. And he put me in the very next week, and I was like, okay. I was up against TDNT, and I do remember that the game went for like 11 turns, but keep in mind, I'm in the Deoxys defense house, so I'm a very passive player. And Devon, at the start of the week, basically passed me a team, and he said, use this, because you'll win with this. And it was hyper offense. In fact, I have the replay here, so I can actually find out what's on the whole team while we do other stuff. But what ended up happening was, like, I don't use hyper offense. Oh, so here's the team here. So I had Dragapult, Urshifu, Magnezone, Rillaboom, Hawlucha, and Ditto. And I don't know how to use hyper offense. Like, I don't. If you're in the academy and you watch this game, I lead Magnezone turn 1 because I see that he doesn't have a ground immunity. And then I quickly realise that I have nothing to defend myself against the Choice Banded Urshifu, and I'm down like 6-5 turn 1 because I just make
leading. Right.
Yeah. That's I literally just forgot everything. Like, I was so nervous because I didn't want to lose and I didn't want to stuff it up, and I'm using a team that I wasn't comfortable with.
Right.
And I had my whole team was in the chat when the game was going. And I literally said to myself, I think I was losing, I think it was like 3-2, and I was just like I literally told myself, like, you know, look, man, like, you just need to just relax and just think properly, and it's like, how are you going to win this game now?
And let me stop you right there real quick. It's just a quick tidbit. That's actually you know what I touched on earlier on about so basically what he did there without realizing it, and a lot of you guys do it without realizing it. If you notice, at the beginning of the battle, all his focus was on, I don't want to lose, I don't want, so what he doesn't want. And in that moment, it's not necessarily the calming down, but the shifting of the focus to how can I win. And so there's this thing in your brain, or just, I don't want to go too much into that, but there's something called your reticular activating system, which is your selective focus. And based on what you're focused on or what you're thinking about, let's say, that's what your brain focuses on. So if I say red, the thought red, let's say I implant the thought red in your mind, and so you may now notice red things. But if I say how many green things were in the room, there are probably more green things in the room than red. But at the time you were looking for red, so you couldn't see the green. And so,
Yeah.
in the same way, that's where the awareness component in the three pillars and all that. Again, guys, book coming out soon on all this. But essentially, what he did without realizing it is like a kid figuring his way out. It's like, okay, what do I do now? And so, go ahead and finish the story and explain to them what happened next. But I just had to like,
Yeah, no,
go ahead.
that's really good. Yeah, I didn't even saying it now, I didn't even realise I did it. Like, essentially what ended up happening was I realised that I had Ditto there. And I came in on Volcarona and I just saw that everything dies to Fire Blast if I can hit them all. And I hit all the Fire Blasts and I ended up coming back to win, which was one of the best feelings. But the first thing I did was like saying thanks to Devon for like just the trust and not letting me like take the easy way out, because that wasn't even what the whole Premier League was even about, I signed up to learn and I lost sight of that within like a couple of days of being there. You know what I mean? And then I won't go through everything, but I ended up playing 2 more games in the league. So every sort of off week that I had, I was helping all the other players test. And then on the weeks that I played, I was just super focused on obviously what I had to do. But I went 3-0 through the PL, so I didn't drop a game. But I couldn't have done it at all without people like Devon and AC and Max Ants and Easy and all those sorts of guys, because everyone just like the knowledge that those people have is just like that's where it's cool, because it's like I can see that I've come far because like I didn't drop a game, but it's also cool to see that these people that I'm on a team with, they're where I want to be. And like they're the ones that are helping. It's sort of like that mastermind thing. So I've got 14 people in here, like, or with myself included. So there's 4 people in here that are all here to help me and to see me win. And like just that experience on its own was just incredible. But yeah, I learnt a lot from the fact that like my play style was not hyper offense. And I actually played, I think my last game that I played was in week 7, and I did a similar thing. Was Max passed me a team, and I didn't know how to use it, and the team was great. I just had no idea what I was doing with it, and I ended up winning because my Clefable was just broken. But yeah, that was. I think the point is like something like the academy that you've created is full of people that are there to help you and support you and to help you realize what you can improve on and what your strengths and weaknesses are, so then you actually know where to focus. Whereas you can read the book from cover to cover and it'll give you the process, but it's like, okay, like what then? I've read the book and yeah, I've seen a climb in points. Like at the moment, I'm like 1 game away from 1800, which is my peak, I think. And so I'm getting there because like, I'm 1700 and I don't use the calcs. I just play, which is sort of like I'm at the point where it's like I don't have to really think too hard about everything. It's sort of almost autopilot at around about 1600. Like I can comfortably get wins. It's like when I'm versing people in the 1800s or whatever. It's like these are the guys that are like at your level, like Blunder's level, like Envy's level, that are
Nah,
like
they're not.
they're gonna.
But I know what you're saying. I don't mean that. It's
But
not. It's not even close.
I
Nobody on the ladder is. Well, I won't say that, but it's there's a the only reason, and I'll be honest with you, the only reason you're struggling more is because you think there's a difference. That's it. Just like how
Hmm.
the only thing that changed from 1100 to 1400 is what you thought. No, you got no new skills.
Yeah, that's right.
And so in the same way, this is the exact same. But it's like it's really a case of identity. It's just a human thing. So what's going on is you need to shift your identity for you to, and you'll see how quickly you rise. And the way I put it is, for example, Spooky, when Spooky got to 18 something, he had no concept of what it meant to be 18, 17. The only thing I said to him, because he scaled up to 15 in like 15 something in like a day or 2 days. And people are like, what the fuck? Because everybody was trying to get to that level. And they're like, but his mind was so pure and his teachability index was so fast that he just implemented it. He's like, okay. And he came to me and he's very honest. Yeah, I got to here, but I'm kind of nervous now. And I said, well, okay, cool. You scale quickly, but now you're at the point where you have to learn to not identify with your results. So you're not now a 1500 player. You're not a 1700 player. You're not an any player, right? And so that's the hardest part, especially when you break a new milestone. And he's like, okay, boom. The next day, oh my god, guys, and it's just fun for him. He's like, oh my god, I made it to 1800 today, like. And everybody's like, what? It's only been 4 days. And so he has no concept of how impressive that is. But in your head, you know what 1800, it has a meaning to you. So now you're like 1800 players or, man, dude, I've seen just on casual ladder stuff, like, it's only because you think they're different why it's harder. And so now you think they're thinking more. When honestly, most people I actually train, people in the academy, even if they're 1600, have far more thorough thought processes than people who are 18 that don't get training from here or from me or have read the book. Like they're unconsciously competent because they've just been playing so long. But if you're somebody who knows how to think at 1600 right now, and you just know the basics of team preview, game planning, you're already ready for 1900 level play. And then maybe at 1900, if people are some more solid there, they generally can do. But it's more mindset than anything.
Yeah, the process doesn't change. It's like when you go back to the very start of this, is like the 1800 or whatever is a number.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't reflect the skill level of the person at all. It's just a number,
Right. Because I wouldn't 1800 Spooky back then. I wouldn't put over some people who were 1600 at the time. He just didn't have the fear. Like a lot of people go on the ladder with fear. I don't want to lose. I don't want to lose my points. And so you don't want to, your focus is to not get to 1900, or your focus is to not lose your points. And so you get what you ask for. You don't lose your points, but you don't gain very much either. And so that's where the identity part comes in, right? So it's to bring awareness to what you would need. Okay, so let's say your goal is to get to 1900 or number one. Let's go all the way up. You have a perception or an image or whatever of what somebody who is number one on the ladder would be like, right? You have, like, if I asked you to describe, what do you think it would take? What do you think the type of person who gets number one on the ladder is like? And you describe these traits. And so the second thing I'd ask you after that is, do you feel like you align with who that is? And it's no. because if you were, you would be number one. Trust me.
Yeah, that's right.
So you don't feel like you're in alignment with who that is. So my third question is, do you believe you can get in alignment with who that is? And if that's a no, then you need to set your goal lower to build the belief. It's not that you can't do it, but your belief isn't strong enough. So instead of aiming for number one, if you feel like you can't get the traits of a person who you think, that doesn't necessarily mean that's how they are, but you think. And so what's funny is the fastest way to get somebody, like the fastest way I could get you to get to number one is by getting you to play Storm Zone his number one all the time. Like if I got you to play 10 games with Storm Zone, and after the 10 games, something's gonna happen. You're gonna be like, you may lose all of them, but the likelihood is you'll probably win. You'll probably lose more than he's slightly more skilled than you at the moment, but also you're gonna give up games because you think he's better than you, that you know some secret thing that you don't. So you're gonna also give up games to that, but you're probably gonna win at least 3 games. And so if you win 3 of 10, you're gonna notice the pattern of like, when I look back at the games, I could have won that one. I could have won. What was I thinking there? And you realize, oh my, I could have beat him. Like I could have won more games than I lost. And so that shifts your belief. And you're like, wait. And so now you shoot up to maybe 1950. Maybe not quite number one yet. But the speed at which you climb changes, not because you learned any new skills, but because you're like, I just played the dude who got number one. He's like 2,200, and man, these 1,900 players is nothing. And so your identity shifted because now you start to believe, hey, I can have the traits that. And so that's all that is. And in anything, if you want to make more money, it's an identity thing, right? If you want to, everything is it comes down to that kind of thing. And you know, it's a little more complicated in how you solve that, but there's not more skill that you need to break out of 1,800.
Yeah. I think half of it is your mental battle. Is like you said, the fear of losing points, or the intimidation from seeing someone that's higher ranked than you, or going into like a few months ago, or would have been, you know, pre-COVID, 1,700 was unfamiliar to me.
Right.
It was and so, you know, and yeah, my skill and all that may not have been there, but at the same time, it's like that was scary to me at the time. It's like this is the goal, and people that are in 1,700 are good or whatever, and it's like, now I'm one of them,
right,
comfortably,
right.
And what, like, to me, I just play the games and I just look at them, they're the same as me, and it's like, in reality they are. They're just a person behind a screen clicking the buttons or whatever, and it's like, I need to, you know, follow the process and use, you know, Joey has a saying which I basically try and remember every time I play, but he said that he couldn't have any regrets if he hit the best play that he could at the time, every single turn that he knew at that moment. So if I can go into a game and if I always do my best possible play and it doesn't work, I will learn something, because it should have worked for this reason, but it didn't because I didn't account for X. You know what I mean? And then now that's something that I know for next time, and I've just gotten better as a player. So then I'll take that when I go in to the next battle, and so on and so forth. And then before you know it, like, you know, you climb, and the numbers just, like, I think the other thing is you climb a lot quicker than you think as well. You know, I played a guy the other night because over Christmas I haven't been able to play too much, but I was about 1670 something, and I played a guy that was 1880 the other night, and I beat him 5-0, and I got 27 points for it. And not that the numbers really mean much, but it's like, I think also people think that it takes like 10 games or something to break the next barrier, but you lose, and you just like the time frame of tilting is so small, and I think people feel like they just lose, and they lose all their points, and it's you fall quicker than you actually rise, but it's about the same. But something that I try and do now is, if I lose like 2 or 3 games in a row, is I just stop, because otherwise I'm going to get back into, like, because it's hard. I think you mentioned it in your book, is, you know, if you want to play casually and all the rest of it, it's like, that's fine, but you know, this book is written for people that want to win, and you don't know many people that have fun losing,
right? And
nobody does, you know. And
yeah, I just lost 20. Like, no.
Yeah. When I lose 3, it's like I'm friggin' pissed, you know. And yeah, so I just jump off and I just do something else, and I'll come back to it, you know, in a couple of hours or in another day or whenever. But
have fun.
It's just to prevent any, you know, because if you're gonna climb the ladder, you got to be in the right headspace for it. If you want to do well, you know, if you're someone like Joey who uses, or I'll use Envy as the example, using bloody copycat choice scarf Blissey for fun, you know, it's
different.
Like, yeah, it's a different mindset, you know. But yeah.
No, for sure. And I actually, the last question was gonna be just sort of just a quick one, since we're about, but like, how have you felt the process of pretty much reading a Pokemon book has transformed life outside of offline? You know, like, how have you noticed any of the mindsets bleeding? Because I noticed you started to read a couple powerful books. We joked about that. And every time, it's funny, every time you show me a book, oh yeah, I've read that 3 times. You're like, damn it. Yeah. Every book. But you know, a lot of what I know now is not because I'm inherently I probably have a natural knack for human behavior. Like, I do enjoy it, and so I have a proficiency, but it's not just some, you know, coming out the womb type thing. I read a lot, like a lot. So a lot of the stuff that I see, I then go, I notice people are struggling with this part of that, and so I find books on it and I read them, and so I come back and then I go, oh, okay, let me apply this, and then I see, oh, boom, quick results, and they're starting to improve rapidly. Oh, whoa, and so how has playing something you thought as a little Pokemon, whatever, actually surprisingly impacted how you view life as a whole, and how your results in your actual life have been changing?
Yeah, so start off with mine. I think that was a book that really challenges me to know, like, but like, there is no such thing as failure if you're actually going to learn something from it. That, you know, like you were saying before, it's about, like, if I don't know how to do something, whether that's in Pokemon or in work life, or like, you know, how do you just make $100,000 a month? You know, like, people don't just know how to do that, but the answer is out there. But the fear of stuffing it up is okay. It's like, you don't know, like, that's part of the process, you know, and it's not going to be something that you fail at if you can actually learn something from it. So that book really did a lot for me. Another book that I started reading, I finished reading, was The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. That book, I think, just changed my life, to be honest with you. just completely changing how I interact with other people and how I think about things, and like how your mind works. All of that stuff is really quite interesting. I'm a bit like you in that way, is, you know, you want to know like how your mind works, because honestly is half of this Pokemon stuff, and it's not just Pokemon, it's, you know, any game, anything in life. It's like half the reason that we face trouble is because we almost create it for ourselves, like in our own mind. Is like, you know, you could be listening to this and going like, he's done it, and I've heard this spooky guy and he's done it, and there's other people in the academy, they're doing it, but I just can't do it. And it's, you know, like the truth is you can, and it's just like, how much are you going to let like, if you don't believe you can do it, you just won't do it. Like, it's literally that simple. Like, something that I actually sort of struggled with was when you were telling me that I was the first person that had actually done all this sort of stuff. Is I thought, like, now I'm that guy. Like, I'm, like you said at the start, like, I'm the original guy that went from 1100 to, you know, 1700 in, you know, the space of 3 weeks. Like, from having no knowledge at all, reading a book, to being, you know, top 500 on the ladder. And like, I sort of took on the pressure of that, like almost like I've got to perform for people that I don't even know, that live up to a standard that, yeah, I'm that guy. Yeah. And it's great that someone like Spooky comes along and he just blows up what record I had.
Yeah.
But, you know, it's like, I hope people can see like that from listening to this, that it is the barriers that I'm facing are mental, and the barriers that Spooky would then face are mental, but then it's how we respond. You know, and like you were saying, is Spooky's like, oh, flip, you know, like, this is scary and I don't know what to do, and you're just like, it's alright, just do this. Oh, okay. And then bang, just does it. And like, it's almost like the fear's gone. It's like, if you could take the fear away, like, stop worrying about the points. Like, don't look at how many points you're on, don't look at how many points your opponent is on, and just play. Yeah. And just cut everything else out, and don't even, you know, if you lose, you're going to learn something, which is what which is the mindset that I put in when I started the draft league. Was, if I lose, I'm going to have a team of people that can review my replays, I can rewatch them, and, you know, I can learn stuff. And if I win, like, I won and I learned that I have so much to learn with, like, hyper offense and other stuff. Is like, I'm so passive in how I play. But yeah, I hope that sort of answers it. Is, I think I stress a lot less, and one of the things that the 7 Habits taught me was to worry about what's actually in my control. So when it comes to Pokemon, is I can control what Pokemon I bring, what moves I hit, and all the rest of it. But it's like, all the pressure, all the numbers or whatever, I can choose to put that all on myself, or I can just play the game. You know, but nobody's out there pointing the finger at me going, oh, you got to perform because you were that guy, you were the OG that climbed the ladder super quick. Like, no one's doing that. I'm the one that's putting that pressure on myself. But yeah, I think once you strip all that back and you just control what you can control, even in anything in life, you know, with work, you know, if you get into trouble for doing something, it's like, well, if you did everything the best of your ability that you possibly could with what you knew at the time, you know, and something like deliveries were late or whatever, it's like, that's out of your control. You know, like, you couldn't have changed anything to affect the outcome or the result. So, like, you can't beat yourself up over that sort of thing, if that makes sense.
No, it makes perfect sense. It makes perfect sense. And if for a lot of you guys who got the book and you saw the quote, right? Because you touched on your job, you saw the quotes.
Yeah.
And it says, if the process, I think your boss said, no, you sent me a message. It was right after you got the new job. We didn't even touch on like the mental process throughout that time, but that's for another time. But his boss said, I believe, if something isn't working, or 2 reasons why you didn't follow the process, or we need to change it, something like that.
It was everything that we do, there's a process to it, and if something goes wrong, it's for one of 2 reasons. Either the process failed or you didn't follow the process. And if the process has failed, we need to change the process.
Okay.
And I think I sent that to you for the perfect reason, to saying to people listening to this now that if you aren't seeing the results, it's because you're not following the process.
Exactly.
And I try not to sound like blunt and harsh with it, but it's like the process works because, and this isn't your first book either, is you wrote the first book and it didn't work.
Mm-hmm.
You write the second one and like it's worked for me, it's worked for Spooky, and there's so many other people in the academy that like I see all the time that it's working. And so it's literally as simple as like just following like that process. Is you've already gone through it, and we've got the luxury that we can pay the $30 investment, or
I think it's
whatever it costs.
Now. Yeah, 25.
25. You dropped your price.
Well, maybe in Australia it's a different currency, but it's 25 on just. It's just 25.
Yeah, that might. Yeah. So it'll be about $30 for me.
I never thought
which
about
is what
that.
I paid it.
Yeah, I never thought about currency, but yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. It's like you're paying $30 for all of your experience, all of, you would have had to have done this process without help, and then articulated it into a way that others can explain, can understand, so like that takes a lot of effort, and we have all of that information for, $25.
Right. I don't think people realize how long it would take. Like, I think that's the biggest thing. But I mean, I'll never. My reason still stands for why I create everything I'm gonna be doing the mastermind. It's for somebody who wants the damn thing and is willing to listen and get the damn thing done. It's gonna, if you know you want the thing, and so like if let's say somebody's like, okay, there's this book that teaches you how to get 100,000 a month, right? And I'm like, okay. And so I look at the track record, everybody there, like thousands of people who have done it. And so I'm like, okay, I want 100,000 a month, but the book costs $1,000. I'm like, And so I ponder on it for a year, and that's a year that I couldn't have been making $100,000 a month that I didn't make. You know what I mean? Until I finally get it, I'm like, man, I took a whole damn year trying to figure it out myself. When he already, you know what I mean? So it's one of those things, right? Like I'll never. There are a lot of people who want it and it's not in the right country, and so that's why I have the ebook. So there are reasons, as I know it's not as simple as that, and then some people are younger, but that's why I put out the free stuff so that it kind of curves that, and then the academy can supplement for any kind of holes, because someone like SD, trust me, one of the most pleasant people you'll ever meet. And so one thing about this space is they're ready and willing to help with anybody because they've been there. So I want to thank him for coming on and taking the time out of his day to share the story. This interview has been long in coming since maybe 6-7 months ago, or like you gotta hit 17. I think it was Either 17 or 1800 you have to hit, and then we'll do one.
Yeah, 1800 it was.
1800, right. And
Yeah. And then, and a quote from yours truly uh, was, "You finally stopped playing around. Now we can get on the podcast."
right.
It took it took a while, but I found time.
Right. Because I knew he could. Again, I knew I can tell when a person has it. And it's not like oh, he was born with a Pokemon gene. It's more of he has the raw material mindset wise. There's some people I have to help unprogram a bit more, like a lot of negative mindsets. So they take a little more time, not because they're slower, but because they have a lot of negative beliefs around what a loss means, But that's a whole other. Again, I'm currently working on a book and potentially a master class. I'm not sure yet about that, but certainly a book on just competitive gaming psychology as a whole, and so it can give you it'll explain to you why you do what you do, and it says gaming psychology, but to close out, the reason all this stuff magically applies to your real life is because the truth of the matter is there's no such thing as gaming psychology, sports psychology, whatever psychology. There's just psychology. And so human beings can choose to use whatever they want as a medium. And so if SD as a person has the belief and identity that I am worthless and nothing good ever happens to me, when he goes on the ladder and fails and that uncomfortable, nasty, hurtful feeling comes in his stomach, in his chest, and just radiates throughout his body, that is not a Pokemon problem. That is not Pokemon. Then when he goes to work and the same thing happens, that's not a Pokemon, and that's not a job problem. It's not job psychology now. It's SD as a person has some things that he has to overcome. And so the great thing about Mons is that you can use the ladder, even though it's not a full-on damn therapy session, and even that's not 100% effective at all times. You have to going on the ladder and battling repeatedly and facing those and changing your beliefs as you climb. Because the dope thing about it is you come into whatever medium you choose, bringing yourself there, but you can also use those mediums to affect how you perform in other areas of your life. So if your mindsets are changing in Pokemon and you're starting to learn that losing is good, this is all great, then you don't, then when you go into your job, all of a sudden you're thinking losing is bad and I'm a failure and complete, no, you're gonna take that way of thinking and you're gonna apply it to your life, you're gonna apply it to your relationship, you're gonna apply, and so your life as a whole literally can get better. That's why I wrote how Pokemon can make you a millionaire. You can literally transform all those negative neural pathways, ways of thinking, habits, feelings by playing games. And it doesn't have to be Pokemon. It can be other things. This is why I'm not making it Pokemon psychology. It's gonna be just gaming. But yeah, I really want people to understand that, and that's why I always say to you, I'm working on this and I'm working on that, because the more I interact with people and the more of these conversations I have, it just lights that fire of oh, I want to help in this arena, So I'm in a perpetual state of never leaving YouTube, because you guys are giving me more problems I want to solve. So thanks. But yeah, that's about it. Any final words?
Yeah. Yeah, just if anyone that's wants to know anything more, like you're up and coming or whatever, so join the academy. I'm sure there'll be a link or something, but definitely join. Many people that will want to help you out. You can always PM me if you want any more specific details about any more in-depth stuff in my journey. I'm just like you. no different. So if I can do it, you can do it, and we can all hit the top. And yeah, I just need to say again, thanks to everyone in the academy, especially to Devon and Savoris. I owe a lot of my journey to those two legends. Can't thank them enough. And Spooky, literally, it's not anything that he's directly done. It's more so the inspiration that, like, whilst I've done it, it's like he's doing it, and it's almost like I want to keep up with you. So it's like a healthy rivalry.
Yeah.
Like I'm going to keep going. It's inspiring me to do better. And so Spooky, you're a legend, man. And
For sure.
yeah, shout outs, and especially to you, Jam, for taking all the time to listen to my essays and
I love that kind of
and
stuff.
all my and just for writing the books and whatever. And it's been great. It's been real good.
All right. And so, guys, that's where we're gonna wrap up. You'll definitely be hearing more of him as he starts to take over the small gun scenes when he stops playing around on the ladder. But I'm sure he's gonna take his time, play around a little more, until he realizes that it's game time. And so my hopes for everybody is for them to realize the same. And yeah, if you want to join the Mastermind, if you want to join the Mastermind, links in the description down below. There are 9 slots available, and I'm gonna be closing this within the next 4 days or so. So yeah, if you get in, you get in. If you don't, you don't. But yeah, peace.